Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with Alan Shearer, me, Gary Lineker, and Micah Richards has joined us fresh from the game. Obviously, you've had a long day already. We know how difficult you find those long days. Are you in the back of a car or a nightclub? I can't quite work it out. Because there seems to be flashing lights in the back. There's looks like the moon behind you somewhere. What is that?
I'm in the back of a Mercedes V-Class. I mean, there are other car brands available. But yes, I've just finished Super Sunday. I've sprinted down. And this is what you call commitment, Alan. This is what you call...
Love it, Big Meat.
Doing it for the cause.
Brilliant. I love it.
What a man. What a hero. It was a strange game, but it was fascinating, wasn't it? Kai Havertz didn't complete one pass in 90 minutes, which hasn't happened for 7 years.
He didn't complete one pass?
Apparently, no, that's official stat from the... not one. I mean, wow. And not only did Kai Havertz not complete a pass in the game, neither did Timber.
Wow.
I mean, I know Man City are good, and they were down to 10 men in the second half, and they actually just sat. And there wasn't actually one when they did get the ball on occasion. There wasn't actually anyone ahead of them to pass to anyway. But I mean, it nearly worked for them. Nearly held on, Micah, didn't they?
They nearly held on. I mean, first of all, I've got to say, what an atmosphere! It was absolutely brilliant. It felt as though there was a little bit of needle back. You know, it was sort of like. Two of the top teams, I know Liverpool are doing well, but two of the top teams going head to head, and every inch mattered. You know, I want to start with Arsenal's approach. For me, they deserve a lot of credit. I know I've given Arteta credit before, but they was brave. They were high. They sort of played into City's hands a little bit in that first 15 minutes. Haaland does what Haaland does. He finds a gap, a beautiful pass from Savinho, and he goes and scores. And at that point, we was all thinking, that's going to be very good for the game, because we're all expecting the game to be cagey. It wasn't cagey. Arsenal thought, okay, no problem. We'll have a go at you. And then the whole back and forth and the tackles and the tactics and everything about it, it just felt like a real special game earlier on in the season, which sometimes you don't really get. Normally you find that towards a March, April time where everything's riding on it. But so early in the season, it just felt like a really massive game again. So, you know, hats off to the players for that. And I mean, where do we want to start with the incidents? We've got to go one by one, don't we? You know?
I mean, obviously, you talked about the Haaland goal. That was, I mean, lovely finish again. He's got that repertoire, hasn't he? And that's 10 goals in 5 games now. So cracking start for them, but Arsenal are good at those set pieces, aren't they?
Unbelievable. And
Gabriel's an absolute force to be reckoned with in the opposition's box, isn't he?
We said it last weekend, didn't we, that there's so many things have to fall into place to make the perfect set piece. First of all, you've got to get the ball and the money.
Yeah, and he does that so consistently, doesn't he? What a Saka.
Then the movement. Then the desire, then the blocking. I mean, all of those things have got to happen within 2 or 3 seconds. It's got to go boop, 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 and to get it right and be as great as they are at those set pieces is just incredible. They're magnificent at them, and the way he gets on the end of them, wow, his movement and everything else is so strong.
Both times Martinelli just backed into the opposition's keeper, into Edison, didn't he? But cleverly, not to do it too obviously, to make it an obvious decision for the referee. But, you know, there's no divine right for him not to just stand there. I mean, it's not like he barged into him. He just kind of held his ground and created that space. But both crosses were absolutely pinpoint. Amazing. I mean, what do you do there, Micah, defensively? Is there anything City could improve on there?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, they should know with Arsenal's threat from set pieces. They literally do it every single week. And yes, they can go front post, they can go far post. There was a discussion in the studio about Haaland's position.
Yeah, I saw that.
The reason why Haaland's in that position is so it has to be a really good ball with going over him and his leap. So I understand that.
Al, you did that position, didn't you?
I did that position for years, yeah.
Yeah, and then the one where you're sort of in a zone. So Man City were in a zone, And first of all, you've got to be on your toes and be ready. So you see, like Arsenal they knew their jobs in the sense that if they was going to lean on the keeper, if they was going to be aggressive, if they was going to make a run. And you see, it was Doku who was marking Gabriel for the first corner.
Yeah.
And then,
That's a mismatch.
yeah, and then Kyle Walker is marking him. And Kyle Walker, in fairness to him, when he asks what he can do differently, he can get really tight and aggressive. And Walker tried to do that. But the fact of the matter is, he got too tight, and then he was looking where the ball was coming to. Gabriel's able to run around the back of him, and then obviously with his height and his strength, it was always going to be difficult. What Kyle Walker should have done, give himself just half a yard so he can see the ball, so he arms width away, you can see where the ball's coming from, and then you can go and attack the ball and see, or even if someone's better in the air, just as they're about to head it in, you can just lean on them and put them off balance. But by that time, it was too late because Gabriel was already in flight and there was only going to be one winner. But it was a bit naive from Man City.
It's very difficult for the keeper, I think, when you've got that many bodies around you and you've been blocked as well. And when the ball's coming in at that pace, I think there's just too many bodies around.
Obviously, there was a controversy with the first Arsenal goal because Kyle Walker was called over by the referee. So it was an interesting one, although he did get back in position by the time they had the ball out wide. So he was in a position to defend by then. So I'm not sure ultimately whether it would have made any difference, but I could see his point.
The only thing I will say, guys, having played in that position, and especially when you're up against a quick wigger in Martinelli, I think he was back, but he wasn't set. And what I mean by that is just like his body and his shoulders. So if you're basically going to mark Martinelli, you open up your body and you wait for that pass and you get across to the back. He wasn't really set. He was back, but he wasn't set. And I think, you look for these, marginal games within football, and Arsenal had it on this occasion. And a lot of people was talking about, well, because he didn't score Martinelli, he was still back. The fact, when Kyle Walker defends, he shows everybody the line. So then he can show the line and then he can get his tackling or his slide tackle or whatever it may be. Martinelli was able to come back inside, and then Calafiori was able to score the goal. So I wouldn't say it majorly affected, but it did put him at a little bit of a disadvantage. And I think, if we're talking about them small games, it did definitely have a small game in that scenario.
Do you think Michael Oliver probably should have held on to the play a fraction longer under those circumstances?
Yeah, I think so. I think looking back, he would probably say, I should have waited a few seconds or pulled them back until he got back into that position. It was a really, really tough game to referee because
wasn't it? There was
so much going on. It was kicking off here, there, and everywhere. It was a difficult one, but I think on that occasion he probably would have been better served waiting for a couple of seconds.
It was a good finish from Calafiori, though, regardless of whatever else happened before.
Bloody brilliant finish, yeah. It was a magnificent finish, yeah.
And then the game changed, really, wasn't it? Was the Trossard double yellow. I don't think he have any complaints. Do you? I hate players getting sent off double yellows for that sort of thing. But you can't kind of say, well, that because it's a second one, I'm not. But it just ruins the game, doesn't it? The game was amazing. It was really good. It was entertaining. It was dynamic. Then all of a sudden, you've got defence against attack, and it's a completely different football match.
Especially when they've already been done for that this season, When you're kicking the ball away like that, when you're on a yellow, it's like, oh, not again. Come on. You got to be a bit clever, haven't you, and understand. But
I see Arteta's point about inconsistency, where the Doku one kicked away, and we saw that similar thing. But I get that. But you've got to be a little bit clever, haven't you, as a player sometimes, and leave your team in the lurch like that. But definitely. In the second half, City, for the whole of the second half and whatever it was, minutes extra, 9 minutes or so extra, they really didn't get any width at all until possibly Grealish came and did a little bit at the end just before they scored, and then obviously took the short corner. It was like they played within the width of the box, playing into Arsenal's hands, and it was kind of baffling for us watching.
You know, watching it from above, and you sort of get like the tactical angle, and it was crying out for someone to underlap or overlap, and it just didn't happen. It was get out wide, Doku, come back.
Not even that wide though. It was like the edge of it was the width of the penalty box. They didn't really get into those areas in the corners because against 10 men you want to stretch a team to create the gaps in the defence. Whereas particularly when you got six at a back six.
Why Man City are so good is because they can solve problems very quick. They can see where the space is on the pitch and then hurt you. But it went round and past, and Diaz had loads of touches, Walker had loads of touches. At times I was thinking to myself, why is Diaz not like running forward and sort of trying to cause a little bit of carnage and leaving the players with the technical ability on the edge of the box? I know they're scared of the counter-attack and all, but Arsenal was exhausted, so it was never really...
They couldn't counter-attack. They had no one to counter-attack with. And the other thing, I think where you've got to give Arsenal a little bit of credit is they would have worked out, I'm sure, at half-time, which players you allow to have the ball 25 yards out. Mm-hmm. So Kyle Walker, okay. Diaz, okay. Akanji, okay. But, you know, there are certain players we don't want to have that ball on the edge of the box to shoot, and I thought that was quite clever, but I was slightly baffled with the lack of width. What's your analysis tonight on that game, Alan?
I was like you guys, I was the same. I was thinking, I mean, Grealish did it twice actually within 30 seconds when he came on. He actually had 1v1 because he was prepared to go a little bit wider and then get to the byline. Then they got the corner, and that's how they got the goal. But having said all that, I thought Arsenal were absolutely magnificent in terms of togetherness, defending, because it was relentless, wasn't it?
They didn't really give him one clear-cut opportunity until the goal, did they?
Yeah, I think it was two really, really impressive saves from David Raya. He was just him again. He was, even when he was coming for crosses, you know. Yeah. But you're right; they were content to let Diaz have the ball all the time and just say, "Oh, if you have a shot." And he did. I mean, the number of shots that he kept having, thinking they got to whoever it was, they got and closed them down so much quicker than they did to him. They were quite happy for him to have the ball.
You know what? I was doing, the analysis after the game with the guys and whatnot, and I was bigging up Gabriel and Saliba, and I'm not just talking about, because it's easy if someone heads it away. It's easy if someone scores. It's easy if someone makes a last-ditch tackle. But can you organise a defence? Can you force the ball wide? Granted that they had Rice and Partey doing a lot of the work. Timber was great, and Calafiori at times. Ben White come on in the second half. But to be up against Man City, who normally find a way. I got asked at halftime, will Man City go on and win? And you're thinking, they'll at least score one. And they did score one, but it was the 97th minute or whatever it is. You have to give, like the youngsters who are watching football and all that sort of thing. It's when we talk about strikers, striker scoring a goal is the most important thing. But we talk about Harry Kane sometimes, about him linking up and his other play. Sometimes you've got to look at your centre halves and the movement. If you look at the game, when the ball went up, Gabriel and Saliba straight up. When the ball went back, the distances, the communication, and everything and that organisation that they was doing, I just thought it was remarkable seeing it from up top as well. But a lot of people are saying, well, they didn't play that well. I'm not just talking about pundits or what, but a lot of people are like, well, they had loads of people behind the ball, but you've got to defend for 45 minutes against 11 men,
Let me quote Roy Keane at you, Micah.
Go on.
They conceded 2 goals. That was a great little tete-a-tete between the two of you there, where he basically wasn't having
We
it.
having a row. I didn't see that.
It wasn't a row, but let's say Roy wanted to make his points that he went, well, anyone can just defend. It was like, it's easy to do. No. And he said, well, I don't know what you're talking about, Micah. They conceded 2 goals. They can't have been that good.
Ridiculous. Absolutely.
It was entertaining.
Ridiculous. And he knows how to spark them conversations.
He knows how to be Roy Keane.
But that was genuinely his opinion on the situation. He said, how could they play outstandingly well if you conceded 2 goals? And I understand for the first one, but but Haaland can do that to anyone, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Haaland can do that when he runs through one-on-one. But I was talking about more the second half, if I was being totally honest.
You were doing some yardage today in the build-up, Mike. Obviously, I was keeping a close eye on you. 1 minute you were in one half, then you're in the other half of the pitch, and he covered more ground than Declan Rice. Even though it's losing a couple of points at home against your closest challengers, it could have been so much worse, but they'll be relieved not to have lost that, and obviously keep that ridiculous record of not having lost there in a home Premier League game for about 733 years. I think it's getting close to 2 years now, which is amazing.
I think when you look at the week that Arsenal have had, they would have without doubt taken that. I know, given the circumstances in the 97th minute, they'll be really disappointed. But when they look back over the last sort of 7 days, what they've had, I think it's been a really good week for Arsenal. And for City, getting the goal late on, getting the point. Didn't really play that well.
Great for Micah because neither of his teams lost.
Oh, brilliant.
Micah, we're going to let you go. You've done enough, and you've got to start that party in the back of that car.
What the hell's going on over is it your left shoulder? I've seen seals, I've seen everything. What's going on there, man?
It's just like
there's the dolphins. The dolphins are back, are they?
What's that?
It's just like a screensaver. That's all it is, just change.
I thought you were in a fucking aquarium. Look at that.
Anyway, we'll leave you to your aquarium. Go and swim with the sharks, Micah. And thanks for joining us. And well done today. Have a rest.
See you later, guys. Pleasure as always.
Yes. See you, Micah. See you later.
Let's discuss the other game played today, Alan, because you would watch that. I watched it earlier at home. You watched it because you're doing Match of the Day too.
Yeah, I think what my analysis is tonight is how Brighton play such a high line, because all of the goals, if I'm not mistaken, that they've conceded this season have been from trying to keep that really, really high line. Even when there's no pressure on the ball, it's such a high line. It's
become very kind of fashionable, isn't it? We've seen it with Ange Postecoglou. Obviously, Klopp did it a lot. We've seen it at times with Arsenal, but it seems to be becoming a very popular way of playing. But it has its risks.
Absolutely. And at the minute, they're not quite getting it right because they're conceding goals, and they give 2 or 3 chances to Forest today with getting it wrong in that in that what they're trying to do. But it was it was a really good game as well. So it's been a really good Sunday for football.
Yeah, and all sorts of obviously decisions to discuss as well. In this one, there was Gibbs White's second yellow, but I don't think you can complain too much for that one, do you?
No, I don't. I think it was the correct decision. It was the dangerous tackle. It could have been a straight red.
Yeah, not quite. I don't think. I think it was. I think it
would have been one of those where if it had been, then it would have been reversed. But when you're on a yellow card and you're going to put in a tackle like that, then you just have no complaints whatsoever. It was the correct decision.
The other decision in that game, the penalty, it was definitely a penalty, wasn't it? Clumsy.
Definitely a penalty. Yeah.
I mean, he put his leg out a bit, but But having said that, it was a clumsy challenge.
Correct. Yeah.
Chris Wood knocked it away, and then Danny Welbeck, who's first ever free kick in the Premier League, apparently, according to the commentators today. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange, isn't it? I was sat with Shea Given, and of course he'll look at the goalkeeper and his angles and how he didn't quite get it right from a goalkeeping perspective, because it's the keeper's side and he should save it basically. But and he would have if he had done his job correctly in terms of his positioning. But Yeah, good strike, but went in the back of the net, but the keeper should have done better.
Yeah, I would imagine he's now the only player in the Premier League history to have a 100% scoring record from free kicks. Talk about yesterday's football, some good games yesterday. Let's start with Liverpool. They were really good. Danny Murphy, I was working with last night, did his analysis on how they've slightly changed, but they still use a lot of the tactics that Klopp used. They're just perhaps a little bit more patient with their build-up, not quite as front-footed, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's been after last weekend's result when Forest beat them. Then I saw them in the San Siro, and I was really impressed with them in that performance. They didn't panic at all. Of course, I did the core comms. And there was no panic. They played their way back into the game with a threat from set pieces. I thought the midfield looked really, really strong. And it was another good performance, good result. Yeah. So that's what you have to do when you've had a bad result. You've got to bounce back straight away. And they've done that. And it was a good win for them.
Yeah, I haven't had the chance to talk to you since, actually. How was it, San Siro? It's one of the cathedrals of football, isn't it?
It was fantastic. I mean, what a stadium, what an atmosphere. It was great to be there, when you pitch side and then you go up and you've got the great view from the core comms, and everything about it was just brilliant. And Liverpool put in such a good performance, it was amazing.
Yeah, they did. But they do look impressive at the moment. Diaz is on fire, obviously, at present.
Yeah, good player, isn't he?
He's really good, and he works his socks off, doesn't he? And he's up and down. He's quick. He's dangerous when he gets the ball. He can beat players. He can score goals.
They've got some real options up front. Liverpool now. I mean, you got Nunez coming. You got Salah. You got Diaz. You got Gakpo. You got so many really good players that you can pick from.
I think it's essential for Arne Slot to get a good start, particularly after following Jurgen Klopp's never going to be easy. Really, really difficult. But I would think we're all a little bit surprised at how smoothly the transition has been. I know they lost that surprise result against Forest, but that aside, away winning the Champions League in Milan, excellent. 4 wins out of 5, right near the top of the league. They'd have snapped their hands off at this, wouldn't these coaching staff?
They would have taken that. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, when you're following such a great as Jurgen was, what he meant to Liverpool, then it was always going to be very difficult. But he seems to have, excuse the pun, slotted in really easily, and they look good. As I said, disappointing last weekend, but they've bounced back in really good fashion, and they'll be there or thereabouts, won't they, at the end of the season?
Yeah, do you mind leaving the puns to me? Oh, that's my domain.
Sorry,
if you don't mind. Another team, I think, perhaps surprising us a little bit because of obviously the madness that's going on at the club. Chelsea, another good win. I think Maresca's done a good job. He's got them playing the way he wants them to play, despite the fact they've got 453 players to choose from each week. He seems to have worked out how he wants them to play. I think we've always seen something in Nicholas Jackson. His movement's excellent. He gets behind players. So I think he's stepping up. He seems to be improving his finishing.
Yeah, especially with all the ongoings, what looks to be rowing or whatever it is behind the scenes, because what goes on at the top eventually filters its way down to the football pitch. But he's managing that side of things really well at the minute. Yeah,
we've got some good players. I mean, Cole Palmer again. I mean, he missed a really good chance, but his finish was just beautiful.
He's such an intelligent player, isn't he? I mean, he's been brilliant. But you're right about Jackson. We've said that there is something in there.
Oh, definitely.
If he can, there's no doubt. I mean, he is very raw, but if he gets going, which he seems to be working hard and learning and getting his finishing better, then he'll end up with a few. Yeah.
How long do you think it'll be before the West Ham fans want David Moyes back for a third time?
It's what was it? So a lot of them came for us, didn't they? Be careful what you wish for. When we said that at the end of last season, a few had a pop, but they'll be all right.
Yeah, there should be. I mean, Danny was quite critical of the tactics to set up yesterday. It was really quite odd that they went man to man with Jackson, with a midfield player who's not very quick, and he just destroyed them. He seemed to have got it wrong there, that particular tactic. But I think better things will come from West Ham.
I agree.
Alan, I hate to bring it up, but Newcastle's unbeaten start to the season is no longer that way with. Well, they're giving a good thumping, actually.
They were rotten for the first half. They were dreadful. They were bloody awful, they were. It was a bit of a reality check, and they hadn't played well really all season. They were getting through games, and we were saying about their team spirit. And once they start, there has to be a good sign. Once they start playing well, then things will click. But no, they didn't deserve anything yesterday at all, and they were really poor. They changed it up second half. Again, little bit of an improvement, but Fulham were miles a better team and deserved to beat Newcastle. So Fulham
are in the top half. Really good start to the season. Does Marco Silva get enough credit? I mean, he's been there a while now, and he's turned them into a consistent mid-table Premier League club, which is, I think, a pretty good achievement. He clearly knows what he's doing. He's incredibly enthusiastic, and obviously tactically he's smart. And they're good to watch. They play some good football as well. And they were
some good players. They've done some good, decent business as well. I think in terms of who they've brought in the players wise. So yeah, I would have. I said it in around mid-table. So I think I like him. I think he's a really good manager. He's very experienced now in the Premier League, so he knows his way around it, and I think they'll do all right then.
They've got a nice mix as well of exciting young players and experience. People like Jimenez, cracking goal. Traore, he seems to have found something in him. Obviously he's always been a threat and pace, but his final ball, but he seemed to delivering that. I think Smith Rowe looks a really good signing. We've always liked him as a player.
Yeah.
In terms of Newcastle, what's wrong? Let's not be too strong here, I should say, because they've got some points in the bank, but they're below par, aren't they? They've not impressed yet.
They're below par.
What's wrong?
If you remember last season and the season before, what Newcastle did really, really well was they overpowered teams, they pressed teams, they went after teams, and we kept on saying about their energy and their fitness and all of that. Well, I haven't really seen that yet this season. They looked knackered yesterday. They looked really tired. They looked heavy-legged. Too many players below par. And that would be a worrying thing for me this season is that we saw lots of it 2 seasons ago and lots of it last season. But in terms of this season up to now, the high intensity, the pressing and the aggression and in everything that they were doing, I haven't seen that yet. And that for me would be a concern. And also what's going on off the pitch. We've said it before about the sporting director and Eddie. Unless that gets sorted out somehow, it will affect performances on the pitch because we've said it. It always does. Whatever happens off the pitch in terms of if it's in the boardroom or whatever, it always eventually comes down, and that needs to be sorted out.
Well, a fabulous week for Aston Villa. Came from behind again, which was a good effort. They'd travelled into Europe, obviously their first Champions League victory as well in midweek, and it looked like it might have been a bit tired on the end of it. Wolves played really well, I have to say, early on, and Cunha scored a terrific goal, but they weren't very good, particularly in the first half. I thought it looked a little bit off it, a little bit jaded, but and Wolves were really good. But they came strong, and you sort of thought, if they get one, and Watkins has obviously found his goal scoring feet. In the early parts, he misses this one, he finishes it, and it gets the defender, I think it was Dawson, might have been, just got a foot in and blocked it, but it went over the keeper. 2 weeks ago, that probably would have gone over the bar or something. It's like.
That's how it happens.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and Duran came on. Didn't score from 30 yards this time. He just scored from about 6 yards out tapping. But
super sub.
Yeah. And I'd tell you, he was good again, Morgan Rogers. I mean, he was really, really good. And he was probably the one that turned it round more than anyone else.
He's been fantastic, hasn't he? Early part of the season. It's been amazing.
There was a few draws. The teams involved in those early relegation clashes. Obviously, Leicester-Everton was a draw, and Ipswich and Southampton was a draw. So still none of the teams promoted from last season have won. The late game yesterday, it didn't have any goals. It had a few incidents in it. I think Man United should have had all 3 points decided by half time, but they were profligate again in front of goal. I think, Palace were much better second half. Even the manager himself said that he wasn't happy, Glasner, that he wasn't happy at all with the way they sat back, and he said we weren't on it or anything, but they were much better in the second half. But I think the interesting story from that one again, Alan, is that he left Marcus Rashford out. Obviously scored the previous week, and he talked about the tomato ketchup, didn't he, in the bottle, and once it goes and he starts scoring, then he scores 2 in midweek, admittedly, against lower league opposition, Barnsley, wasn't it? Yeah. And then he gets left out. Now, it looks like it might, reading between the lines, might be some disciplinary issue, because he kind of muted that in his press conference that, Marcus has got to be professional.
Why else would you leave him out? Why else would you leave him out?
I know. So
when things have been, I don't know, criticised, and I was one of them for performances, but then you get your goal last weekend, you get another couple in the midweek. Yeah. Why would you actually even contemplate leaving him out? So that my guess is, and it is a guess, that it has to be something different.
Yeah. It must have been something going on because, especially in a game like that, it was 0-0 as well. So, one of those things. But let me finish. I want to talk about another comeback from Spurs. Brentford did what they did at Manchester City and scored after 20 seconds or so. But we're talking about strikers, and Watkins found his goal-scoring feat. It was good for Dominic Solanke, wasn't it?
Yeah, he needed it because obviously a lot of money's been paid for him. He started 2 games, hasn't he, in the league, and already people were saying this and that and what have you. But I suppose that's what happens when you're a striker. You know that. So for him to get off the mark will be huge for his confidence. So we all know how it works. He'll probably go and get another one next week.
Yeah, and I think it's probably important too for Brennan Johnson as well, because he's getting a bit of stick, and he was on social media, and I think Ange Postecoglou said in prior to the game in his press conference that he'd come off social media and but it's like as a footballer. But it's important. The best place to respond is on the pitch and score.
Well, I'd been critical of Spurs in forward positions. I mean, they particularly the game at Newcastle. They had so much possession. They got into so many good areas of the pitch, and it was so wasteful. And again, last weekend, I thought so. For him to score and for Solanke, then great for their belief and their confidence and for them going forward this season.
I tell you, he was brilliant yesterday, and he was picked out by Danny Murphy to do his analysis. Was Maddison ran the show. He dropped him a little bit deeper because he played kind of Kulusevski as a 10. And Maddison dropped a little bit deeper, and just shows how versatile footballer is and the way he can turn on the ball. And he absolutely ran the show. And it was funny because we were having a conversation with Danny. He says people keep saying he's had a really bad start to the season. He said I think Spurs have not had a good start to the season. He said, but actually Maddison, when they played Leicester, he completely ran the game, and even against Newcastle he was really good as well. Turned it around. So I think generally it's been a pretty good start for James Maddison. He'll still be desperate to get back in the England squad. But, I mean, it's a position, if he can play in a little bit deeper role. Obviously, there's a lot of talent in England squad, but he's such an intelligent player.
I don't think you'd get many complaints, would you, from Spurs fans about him being a good player. We know what he's capable of, so... Yeah, he's so intelligent and great on the ball, can make that final pass. He'll have a good season.
Yeah, okay. Let's leave it there. I think in overall, looking at the weekend, I think it's probably better for the league that City didn't win that game because, all of a sudden the gap gets there and you think, well, they're going to run away with it because, they generally get better and better as the season progresses. So even though it was a draw, he had a lot going on in that particular match. Okay, that's it for this particular episode. We'll be back with our question and answer episode on Wednesday. But for now, that's it. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.